150-year legacy, has an outstanding archive and library, currently housed in Pinkham Notch, New Hampshire. It's available for research. You can go visit. You can also browse the catalog online. And online, one of my favorite features is random photo. You literally click random photo when you visit that web address, and it pulls up one of these outstanding pictures from AMC's history. Now, though this looks like an antique photo, this is a modern photograph of AMC's archivist, Becky Fullerton, who in her free time likes to dress up in 20th century hiking apparel and go hike the White Mountains. So this program was provided by Becky. I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to move as quickly through it as I can, but Becky's notes are so outstanding. Those of you who know me know I don't love scripts, but we have an outstanding script. So I'm going to do my very, very best here. Perfect. The Appalachian Mountain Club traces its origins to the summer of 1873, when Edward Charles Pickering, a 27-year-old physicist from MIT, I think he looks a lot like me, first visited the White Mountains of New Hampshire. While ascending Mount Osceola with his brother William and Colonel Charles William Folsom, Pickering envisioned an organization dedicated to the exploration and mapping of the mountains. So that was his 1873 journey. By 1876, Pickering had gathered a community of like-minded individuals from Boston's academic and scientific circles. On January 8th of 1876, the first preliminary meeting was held at MIT to discuss forming a club. After considering names like the Alpine Club and New England Geographical Society, the group settled on the Appalachian Mountain Club to reflect a broad geographic area that rooted the organization in its nearest mountain system, while imagining a scope that stretched far beyond it. They vowed that no place was too distant. The Himalayas and even the Mountains of the Moon were fair game. The club was officially organized with 35 original members. Its stated purpose was, quote, the advancement of the interests of those who visit the mountains of New England and adjacent regions, whether for the purpose of scientific research or summer recreation, end quote. Officers were elected to a council, including a president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. The club's initial structure included 5 departments: natural history, topography, art, exploration, and improvements. One of the club's first priorities was the systematic exploration and mapping of the White Mountains. The Department of Topography, I love that that was an official committee, the Department of Topography, led by Charles Henry Hitchcock and later J. Rayner Edmonds, worked to correct existing charts and produce accurate maps. In 1876, John B. Hank Jr., who was also the first secretary of the club, published a sketch map of the club's journal, Appalachia, which served as the first trail map of the region. Louis Faymeyer Weathercutter later became a pivotal figure in AMC cartography, producing detailed maps of the northern presidential range, starting in 1898, that remained the standard for nearly a century. Exploration was not limited to established trails. Members like Eugene B. Cook and Augusta E. Scott led bushwhacking expeditions into remote areas such as the Pemigewasset Wilderness. In 1882, Scott led a party including 3 women on a grueling 6-day traverse of the Twin Range, battling pick it up. Are they calling about your bike ride tomorrow? Sorry, I got a weird sense of humor. Battling dense crumb holes. Anybody know what crumb holes are? What is it? Oh, the small trees above tree line? Nice. Above where the battling dense crumb holes and rough terrain to open up new areas for hikers. The Department of Improvements, another outstanding committee, headed by William Gray Noel, spearheaded trail building efforts. In 1876, the club constructed its first shelter, the AMC camp on Mount Adams. This marks the beginning of a vast network of trails and shelters. By the turn of the 19th century, AMC maintained approximately 80 miles of trails in the White Mountains. The concept of permanent huts emerged in the late 1880s. Madison Spring Hut, the first stone hut in the system, pictured here, was built in 1888 to provide shelter for hikers on the northern presidential. Originally a simple structure with bunks and a stove, it laid the foundation for the club's renowned High Mountain Hut system, completed in 1865 with Mizpah Spring Hut, the club's 8th hut. 1965. Call me out anytime. You know me, I'm cool. If you've ever been to Madison Spring, I don't think it's changed that much. It has an addition and a porch, right? Yeah. Yeah. It's still got those stone walls though, which is awesome. Women were admitted into the Appalachian Mountain Club from its inception, a progressive stance for the time. By June of 1876, 12 women had joined. Women actively participated in excursions, trail building, and club governance. Martha Fairfield Whitman, a medical student, was a vocal advocate for women in the outdoors, publishing articles on the camp life for ladies. I should find that article. And participating in rugged explorations. Her article on climbing Tuckerman Ravine in bad weather, published in the first volume of Appalachia, set the standard for adventure writing in the journal. While initially focused on recreation and science, AMC quickly recognized the need for conservation as logging operations expanded in the White Mountains. In the 1880s, AMC began advocating for the preservation of forests. The first major step in land conservation came in 1895 with the purchase of 36 acres along Snyder Brook on the northern slopes of Mount Madison. This tract was eventually added to the White Mountain National Forest and holds old-growth hemlocks, some of which are over 300 years old. The early 20th century saw AMC take a leading role in the fight for federal forest protection. The club collaborated with the Society for the Protection of New Hampshire Forests to advocate for the creation of a national forest in the eastern United States. After years of lobbying and the tireless work of figures like Alan Chamberlain and Philip B. Ayres, you may remember from the establishment of the Appalachian Trail, the Weeks Act was passed in 1911. This legislation authorized the federal government to purchase private land for forest reserves, leading to the establishment of the White Mountain National Forest in 1918. The hut system expanded during this period. In addition to Madison Spring, new huts were built at Carter Notch in 1914, Lake of the Clouds in 1915, Pinkham Notch Camp in 1920, Lonesome Lake in 1929, Greenleaf in 1930, Zealand Falls in 1932, and Galehead in 1932. Joe Dodge, hired in 1922 to manage Pinkham Notch Camp, became a legendary figure in the club, overseeing the expansion and modernization of the hut system over 3 decades. AMC played a crucial role in popularizing winter sports in New England. The club's first organized winter excursion took place in 1882, and a snowshoe section was formed in 1886, just 10 years after the club was established. By the 1920s, skiing had taken hold. The club formed snow trains from Boston to the White Mountains, built ski trails, and formed a ski committee to offer instruction and organize races. Cardigan Lodge was established in 1934 as a dedicated ski reservation. While rooted in New England, AMC's members looked outward to greater ranges. In the 1890s, members like Charles E. Fay and Philip S. Abbott pioneered mountaineering in the Canadian Rockies. Abbott's tragic death on Mount Lefroy in 1896 was the first mountaineering fatality in North America, but did not dampen the club's enthusiasm. The club continued to organize expeditions to the Alps and other ranges, fostering a community of skilled climbers. As the trail network grew to over 250 miles, the club realized that volunteer labor alone was insufficient. In 1919, AMC hired its first professional trail crew, a group of young men paid to maintain trails during the summer. This marks the beginning of a professional approach to trail management that continues today. The club also played a key role in the formation of the New England Trail Conference in 1917 to coordinate trail work across the region. Following World War II, outdoor recreation exploded in popularity. The hiking boom of the 1950s and 60s put immense pressure on AMC's trails and facilities. In an August 1961 issue of National Geographic featured an article on the, quote, friendly huts of the White Mountains, leading to record-breaking surge in visitation. To manage this growth, the club modernized its huts, introduced reservation systems, and emphasized visitor education. In the 1960s and 70s, AMC evolved into a modern environmental organization. The Conservation Committee, formed in 1947, became increasingly active in legal and legislative battles. The club fought against the construction of a 4-lane interstate highway through Franconia Notch, successfully advocating for a scaled-down parkway that preserved the area's scenic character. It also opposed dam projects and supported the Wilderness Act in 1964. AMC was a key member of a coalition that successfully opposed the Tox Island Dam project in the 1960s and 70s, which you'll hear more about from George. The club's advocacy helped prevent the damming of the Delaware River, leading to the creation of the Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area and over 220 miles of congressionally designated wild and scenic river. Recognizing that conservation required scientific backing, AMC established a research department in 1973. The department conducted studies on trail erosion, water quality, and alpine vegetation, providing data to inform management decisions. The Mountain Leadership School, launched in 1958, trained trip leaders in safety and stewardship, addressing the needs for competent leadership in the backcountry. The club's governance structure evolved to meet the demands of a large regional organization. In 1956, Fran Belcher was hired as the first executive director, marking a shift from a purely volunteer-run council to a professional staff-led organization. In 1975, Ruby Horwood, Ruby, from the Delaware Valley chapter, right, became the first woman elected as club president of the council, reflecting the growing role of women in leadership positions. She worked with the newly arrived second executive director, Tom Deans, on the club's most pressing issues of the day. As membership grew, new chapters were formed to serve members outside of Boston, including New York in 1912, later called the New York, North Jersey chapter. Worcester, a name I can't pronounce, in 1918. Thank you very much. I knew somebody in here could do it. There you go. Give it one more. Anybody else? Anybody else can't pronounce it? Connecticut in 1921, the New Hampshire chapter also in 1921, the Narragansett chapter in 1921, the Western Massachusetts chapter in 1929, Maine in 1956, Delaware Valley in 1962, which George will touch on for all of you, Boston in 1975, the Southeastern Mass chapter in 1976, and the Washington, D.C. chapter in 1984, later called the Potomac chapter. The club also acquired new facilities, such as the Cold River Camp in 1919, Echo Lake Camp in 1922, Ponkapog Camp, which I can't pronounce, in 1929, and the Crawford Notch Hostel in 1979, diversifying its lodging options and geographic reach. It wasn't until I saw this program that we acquired Crawford Notch as late as we did in 1979, where the Highland Center is built today. My favorite photo of the program. If you recognize these folks, cheerio. By the late 1980s, the AMC faced a grim financial reality. A decline in outdoor activity popularity combined with a lack of financial expertise and an outdated organizational structure left the club in serious debt. Tom Deans recognized that the startup style of the organization could no longer support its growing reach and endowment. In March of 1988, Deans facilitated the Osterville Retreat, a pivotal meeting funded by the R.K. Mellon Foundation to restructure the organization. This led to three major changes. One, the council transitioned from managing day-to-day operations to becoming the formal board of directors focused on policy. The role of the executive director was elevated to a CEO position with operational control, shifting power from volunteer committees to professional staff. Andy Fallender, a Harvard Business School graduate, was hired to lead this new era. The bylaws were revised and passed with 92% membership approval to formalize these structural shifts. These changes resulted in over 2 decades of balanced budgets, an endowment growth to $34 million, and a professionalized staff capable of managing complex conservation efforts. The AMC shifted its conservation strategy towards large-scale ecosystem protection through broad coalition. Major alliances defined this era. In Sterling Forest, pictured here, AMC collaborated with the Palisades Interstate Park Commission and Senator Bill Bradley to secure $50 million to protect roughly 18,000 acres on the New York-New Jersey border, known as the Sterling Forest Project, which the Highlands Coalition was born out of. The Northern Forest Alliance formed in 1990 to combat land fragmentation in Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, and New York. AMC provided crucial research via the Northern Forest Resource Inventory. The Alliance successfully conserved 3.2 million acres and established the National Forest Legacy Program. AMC joined the Highlands Coalition in 1998 to serve its Mid-Atlantic membership, identifying critical conservation areas from Connecticut to Pennsylvania. A major victory was the passage of the Highlands Conservation Act in 2004, which allocated $10 million a year in federal matching funds for land protection. AMC faced significant friction in the 1990s regarding the use of natural resources, specifically regarding hydroelectric dams and the White Mountain huts. AMC leveraged the relicensing process of hydroelectric dams to demand river protection and recovery funds. While successful on the Deerfield and Kennebec rivers, they faced backlash on the Berlin-Gorham, New Hampshire, regarding the Androscoggin River. Local mill workers viewed AMC's environmental advocacy as a threat to their jobs. The tension from the dam conflict spilled over into the repermitting of the White Mountain huts. The Forest Service required a rigorous environmental impact statement. Led by Walter Graff, Sam Pryor, and Sandy Saunders, the AMC proved that the huts actually concentrated human impact, thereby protecting the wider wilderness. The repermitting process, conducted in 1999 with renewal, forced the AMC to modernize the huts, installing composting toilets, right, Q? And creating naturalist programs, and prioritize relationships with local communities, ultimately strengthening the organization. The 21st century began with AMC's commitment to landscape scale conservation. In 2003, the club purchased Little Lyford Pond camps in Maine, essentially kicking off what would become the Maine Woods Initiative, a profound undertaking involving land acquisition, sustainable forestry, and education. In March of 2006, the AMC joined the Nature Conservancy and the Forest Society of Maine to announce a conservation framework aimed at permanently protecting over 400,000 acres in Maine's North Woods. This framework was developed in response to a controversial concept plan by landowner Plum Creek, which included proposals for resort and housing lot developments. While advocating for this, AMC simultaneously raised $25 million for the campaign, viewing it as a legacy project for Maine. Concurrently, the organization achieved federal legislative success with the passage of the New England Wilderness Act in 2006, creating the Wild River Wilderness and expanding the Sandwich Range Wilderness. Throughout the first decade of this century, AMC deepened its focus on scientific rigor to influence policy. By 2009, AMC's air quality scientists presented long-term data on high elevation cloud and rainwater chemistry to the Environmental Protection Agency, demonstrating the high elevation ecosystems required special consideration in new Clean Air Act standards. The club fought to restore funding for U.S. Geological Station stream flow gauges, which were crucial for flood control and drought management. In Maine, AMC successfully opposed a legislative attempt to annex lands for a wind power project that would have severely impacted the Appalachian Trail. The middle of the decade was defined by major regional controversies. Starting around 2012, the Appalachian Mountain Club became a central opponent of the Northern Pass Transmission Corridor in New Hampshire, a project that highlighted the tension between energy infrastructure and landscape protection. The club's research department utilized GIS modeling to identify viewsheds, particularly along the Appalachian National Scenic Trail, that would be negatively impacted by the 180-mile power line corridor. Simultaneously, AMC took a leadership role in the fight to reauthorize the Land and Water Conservation Fund. When Congress provided only partial funding in 2014, AMC recognized the expiration of the program as an existential threat to trail protection and land conservation. Despite these political battles, AMC continued to plan for recreational growth, proposing a new 50-guest hut in Crawford Notch State Park in 2015 to bridge gaps in the existing system. In the latter half of the period, AMC focused on internal effectiveness and long-term climate strategy. By 2017, AMC led a 1,300-member coalition lobbying for the Land and Water Conservation Fund reauthorization, elevating its status in national conservation policy. Internally, the club utilized an organizational health index survey to refine its operations, ensuring it could sustain high-level advocacy demands. By the end of 2018, the club established a carbon fellowship to study carbon sequestration on its more than 77,000 acres of forested land in Maine. This marked a shift from merely studying climate change to actively managing forest assets for mitigation, with the goal of selling carbon offsets or using them to meet the club's target of 80% greenhouse gas reductions by 2050. The year 2019 was a high watermark for the Appalachian Mountain Club, characterized by historic infrastructure projects and legislative victories. Crews completed a 9-week restoration of the bicentennial Crawford Path and rebuilt the Guyot Shelter in the Pemigewasset Wilderness. The year saw the permanent reauthorization of the Land and Water Conservation Fund and the final defeat of Northern Pass project by the New Hampshire Supreme Court. The club launched a $25 million campaign for the Pleasant River Headwater Forest, framed as a climate-resilient project to restore Atlantic salmon habitat. The onset of COVID-19 in 2020 forced a fundamental operational pivot. For the first time since World War II, AMC made the heartbreaking decision to close high huts to overnight guests. The organization quickly adapted, launching the Be Online with AMC virtual platform and restructuring programs to adhere to social distancing needs. Despite the financial hit, the organization survived through donor support and the Paycheck Protection Program, while celebrating the passage of the Great American Outdoors Act, which secured permanent funding for public lands. As the region entered a new normal, AMC focused on expanding access and navigating economic instability. In 2021, AMC reopened the improved Camp Dodge Trails Training Center and secured International Dark Sky Park certification for our Maine Woods property. The club filed a federal lawsuit against the New England Clean Energy Connect transmission line, arguing for a more rigorous environmental review. The period concluded with a renewed strategic focus on social equity and climate adaptation. AMC formally articulated new values: joy, integrity, inclusion, collaborative, bold, and resilient, and committed to a formal diversity, equity, and inclusion work plan. This included the opening of the Cardigan Mountain All Persons Trail, designed to meet accessibility guidelines. Since 2023, the Appalachian Mountain Club has transitioned into a pivotal era defined by its 150th anniversary preparations, ambitious climate commitments, and a significant shift in its leadership and strategic vision. Under the guidance of President and CEO Nicole Zussman, the organization has doubled down on its net zero by 2050 goal. Achieving a major milestone in 2023 with the adoption of a new solar array at Zealand Falls and the Highland Center, which made the entire hut system solar powered. This momentum carried into 2024 and 2025 with the launch of the All Out Action Plan, a strategic roadmap to 2030, prioritizing large-scale landscape conservation and equitable access to the outdoors. The club's conservation efforts have seen historic wins, particularly through the expansion of the Maine Woods Initiative, which now protects nearly 130,000 acres of contiguous forest. In 2024 alone, the AMC secured over $45 million in federal forest legacy grants, the program we helped to establish, if you remember, to preserve working forests from Maine to Virginia. These successes are balanced by a growing focus on participatory science, where members now contribute to climate data collection, such as monitoring plant life cycles along the Appalachian Trail and participating in the Northeast Snow Survey to track the impact of warming winters on mountain ecosystems. As the organization moves through 2026, its 150th year, it has embraced its role as a regional leader in both recreation and advocacy. Historical highlights will include the 2,200-mile flag relay from Virginia to Maine to celebrate its legacy. We're doing it. The launch of the AMC's 150th anniversary relay has garnered a lot of enthusiasm as members of our outdoor community participate in, and take ownership of an epic outdoor journey from Virginia to Maine. Beginning on March 14th in Shenandoah National Park, the relay kicked off with AMC chapters and volunteers leading the way by bike, boot, and paddle, passing the AMC 150 pennant hand to hand across our region, ultimately ending at AMC's Meadowista Lodge and Cabin in Maine on September 20th. Along the route, we're coming together for volunteer projects and community celebrations like this one that honor 150 years of conservation, trail building, and adventure, and point towards the future we're building for people and the outdoors.